Righty ho, good neighbors. Happy Wednesday. Seems like it's been a while since we've been on, so it's good to be back. Hope to see everybody in the chat today. I'm Phil Russert, and I'm the host of Creatorcon Q&A. And tonight we have a very multi-talented guest. I mean, there's a lot to cover, actually. He's basically done it all. Before we get into that, of course, my usual quick shout-outs. For your comic book needs, you have Mad Titan Comics on Instagram. It's MadTitan_comics. Eric Gunderson is the owner-operator. You can find him on Facebook. You have www.lessdudis.com, LESDUDIS.com. That's Andy Lee, the awesome dude who does my promotional graphics. So thank you, Andy. He's everything pop culture and indie culture, and you name it. He covers comic books and toys and collectibles, and it's a great website. He's a great guy. He does some awesome reviews of conventions as well. So please go check that out. We have Art by Kike, which is Enrique Lopez on Instagram. He has his Monday night show at 8 p.m. It's Inking with Kike. He always has a special guest while he's on inking one of their pieces. So please go check that out. And finally, we have two more. It Came From the Radio, which is an online podcast radio show with your host, Mark Torres. Go check that out. I will actually be a guest on that show next Wednesday. I think it doesn't air live, but keep for details for my appearance if you're interested in hearing my mouth. Anyway, we also have Android's Amazing Podcast with James, and he's very knowledgeable about the comic industry. They talk about different topics, so go check them out. They're on everything, Spotify, and pretty much everywhere you can find them. So, also, lastly, please share this live, everybody. And besides sharing it live, please go subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit that bell if you don't mind alerts. If you do mind alerts, then at least subscribe to the channel. You can see all the past episodes. Now that we got that all the way, one last thing. December 6th, 10 to 6 p.m., Suffolk Comic and Art Expo. Billy Tucci, Larry Stroman, Roddy Ramos, Keith Williams, Alex Rivera, and a bunch of local talent, as well as a bunch of comic vendors. So it will be safe. It'll be safer than your Walmart and your Target. So if you're up to it, come on out. It's a $5 cash at the door. That's it. We hope to see you there. Having said that, tonight's guest has been a wrestling champ. He is a comic book writer and creator. He is a storyboard artist for movies. He is a voice actor. He is a child actor. You name it, he has done it and is still doing it. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Rusty Gilligan. Hey, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going?
Nice mask.
Well, I just want to be safe for your viewers.
Yeah.
So I've been told I have an infectious personality, so
And at least we're distanced, right?
Right. That's it. How are you tonight?
I'm good, thanks. Sorry we had to postpone from yesterday. But we're back and rolling on, with all cylinders, hopefully, and we're good to go.
Hey, there you go, buddy.
So you have, so far in your life, had a pretty illustrious career. Diversified, doing so many different things. Hi, Kathy. That is my mother. She came to say hello.
Hey. Hi, Mom.
So before we're going to get into all the different aspects of your career, because, my God, there's so much to cover. I guess we'll start from the beginning. You were a child actor.
Yeah.
And I know you've done stints on Little House, on the Prairie, and the Peach Dragon, which, man, we loved that growing up, Peach Dragon. That was amazing, So how did you get into child acting?
Well, it's when I was in New York, first of all, and a lot of the kids, now you got to remember this was 67, early 70s, a lot of the kids were into going to the local PS, the public school, and doing things during the summer. I remember one summer I did arts and crafts, it was like every Monday and Friday at some school in a, anonymous classroom. And, you just sit there and do stuff, dancing, singing, maybe it was playing games, on and on and on. So one of them was acting. And from there, I got I had gotten I don't want to say discovered. That sounds so Marilyn Monroe formal, but I got asked if I wanted to go to an acting class, an actual class. So I did that, and then got picked up from there to go into a Broadway play, and I did a couple of months on Broadway, and I
How old were you?
let me see, seven, seven going on eight. No, seven actually. I was eight when we moved to California, and that's where I had gotten my agent. Continued a little bit with the play, and when they moved on, I stayed. I had stayed in California because the play company would like tour, the theater company. They went from New York to New Jersey for summer stock, California. I remember we were at the Golden Mall Playhouse, which was this giant, beautiful uh, playhouse that was literally located in an outdoor mall. And then I think they went on to Arizona, but I stayed in California. And I had gotten my agent at the time. She's the one that also got me into doing artwork for films. She's long passed, but her name was Mitzi McGregor, and she was a beautiful older lady. She was also the one that gave me my name, Rusty, because when I was a kid, I had a flaming carrot top, and I looked like Howdy Doody. I had the hair, I had the whole bit, and I was put ahead in school. When I was in, like, let's say in the fifth grade, I was old enough to be in the third grade, second grade area. I was always like 3 or 4 years younger than everybody. So when I got put ahead grades, it was funny. Hi, Keith. So it was very funny, and I was smaller than all the other kids. So that always helped me for getting parts and things. And I did a lot. IMDb shows most of the acting roles that I did.
Well,
But
what have you done? What are some of the roles that you've had?
that what you mean that's not on there?
Well, just for the viewers that may not be looking at that.
Um, well, I was on the Family Affair television show for an episode. I did Saturday morning television. You have to remember, in the 70s, Saturday morning television was different than it wound up being later on. This wasn't a cartoon graveyard like it started to get in the 80s and
Right.
90s. There was actually live shows like HR Puffin stuff
I
and
remember.
things like that. So I was
All
on.
superstars and all. Yeah.
Right, right. So, and Croft was huge, by the way.
Oh, I love them. Ruth
They
Buzzy
did,
was in that one with the flying saucer, and
yep. They did more than they took credit for, by the way, too, which a lot of people don't know. They were probably the pioneers of about 50 or 60 shows, and their name was only on about 10% of them.
yeah.
Split companies, sub companies, blah blah blah. I was on a popular show Saturday morning called Thunder about a girl that was with her horse. Campy type show. Picture Lassie, except it's a girl and a horse instead of a boy and a dog. There was another one called Lucan, which was like a Tarzan. He's a boy that was raised by wolves and grew up in the forest and then comes to the city and on and on and on. That was very popular Saturday morning. I probably did about 200 commercials, everything from Magic Mountain, which is a Six Flags park, Seven Up, and Jello was another one.
Now,
Candy bars.
as a child, I mean, I know these were a lot of supporting parts and everything, but as a child, how was it being an actor in that world? I mean, because you hear so many stories about child actors and the pressures on them and how they kind of go crazy. I mean, how was it for you?
Well, a little different than a lot of people. I'll give you for instance. Let's say you've got a child actor who's very popular and he's on a television show. Take like a Brady Bunch.
Right.
So they're on that show as a regular and they do tons of episodes. like they're a star or they're one of the ensemble cast. Let's say they do, average run, 80 to 150 shows. I was a utility actor. So for me, I would be in plays. I would be in television commercials. I would be in like a movie, or I'd be in, a television show, like one episode. So where one person is, let's say, steady and works for one person, like for a long period of time, I would hop around and do multiple jobs.
So did
So,
that keep you grounded and out of trouble?
well, out of trouble, yeah. I tell you, my mother and grandmother raised me. I would have gotten my butt whooped if I got into trouble. You couldn't. I couldn't breathe the wrong way. They were very strict, and it's good because um, with a certain amount of strictness, it comes, respect, and I think that's one of the things that helped me out a lot in all the industries that I've been a part of. But I worked just as much as anybody that was out there, anybody that was on a show for a long period of time. I worked just as much. I just didn't stay with the same job. I
Right.
remember a 6 month period. I was probably in 10 or 15 commercials, a couple of different television shows, and did a movie.
Cool.
And when you add all that time together, I remember doing one movie on NBC. It was a made-for-TV movie, and it was 13 weeks just doing the one movie.
Wow.
And for behind the camera, uh, 13 weeks, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And then on the actual screen, oh, it's just an hour-long movie. It's not like
Right.
a
But you
hundred.
do all the different takes and everything. It's a lot of hours.
And you got to get to the set every day. For us, it was an hour and a half away, I think it was. We were located in California, and where we had to go was a place called Paradise Cove, which was kind of a beach community. So it was about an hour and a half away. And then we had to be there early. And children on the set had social workers and teachers. So we had to wake up basically at 4 in the morning, get there by like 5:30, makeup, wardrobe 6:15, have breakfast on the set, get any pink pages or any blue pages, which are like changes or revisions or whatever. Then we would capture like if the light needed to come from a day scene or a night scene or whatever.
Right.
Kids couldn't work a full day. We had to actually go to school.
There were
So
also restrictions for how late you could work.
right, right, and if it was a nighttime shoot, then we weren't allowed to be there all day long. We had to
Right.
show up at a certain time. For the that movie, I went, and we would get there, like I said, at we'd be through everything we needed to do and start breakfast at like 6:15, and then I would sit in the trailer that was the classroom, and for 3 hours. If they needed me for makeup, I'd leave and come back. If they needed me for a close up or a take, I'd leave and come back. But I had to log 3 hours.
How
There
did
were
you
there
feel
were times.
as a not
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
How did you feel as a kid though? You didn't have a normal kid life. You didn't get to go play with your friends and run out in the street and play stoop ball and stick ball and or whatever, Legos, GI Joe.
The hard part for a lot of kids is the social aspect. They have brothers and sisters that they feed off of. They have friends that they feed off of. They go to school and have kids, that they and experiences. For me, it was a little different. I didn't have any brothers or sisters. It was like I said, my mother and grandmother raised me, so I was pretty much all alone. A lot of the stuff that I did was, very closed up. I'd go in my room and listen to music, watch TV, read. I loved comics when I was a kid.
So it
So
fit your lifestyle basically how you like to.
yeah, I didn't. I got to say, I didn't miss out on anything. I had more fun working, whether I was a kid doing the acting or adult doing the
Right.
different things that I did. than I would have if I was just running around in the street and skin knee. I did do stuff. I was, being in California at the time, uh, I loved doing things like going to the movies. I was skateboarder. I had a bike, the whole thing.
Did you get a chance to meet a lot of the bigger stars, being that you were a utility actor? I mean, like,
Oh,
for
yeah.
example, Dante wanted to ask if Michael Landon was cool when you were on The Little House.
I don't like to speak ill of the dead, but I will say that he was not the nicest person in the world. There's a little bit to that too. As a kid, all the way to today, obviously, I'm a huge Western fan. I loved Gunsmoke and High Chaparral and on and on and on. John Wayne movies, and Bonanza is still my all-time favorite television show. As a matter of fact, I was watching it today, and it was a big, big honor for me to go on the set and meet, Little Joe,
Right.
Michael Landon. And there was just, I won't go into a lot of detail because I just, I hate when people snap at each other. But the thing is that he wasn't the nicest guy to work with. There was a big problem on the set. There was a big controversy when I was there, not including me, but there was a big controversy the week that I was there, the first week. And, it's hard to, like, I'll watch the show. I'll watch, like, Bonanza or Little House or Highway to Heaven, and I'll be like, yeah, it's a really good episode, blah, blah, blah. I love old TV more than I like new TV. And then I see him, and every once in a while I think, But he was very hyper professional. A lot of people felt that Bonanza, even though it was a great television show and he did great work on it, a lot of people felt that Little House ruined him because he was producer, director, writer, star, blah, 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 blah. And he had a lot of grit to him when he got to that stage because he cut his teeth on Bonanza. And I think a lot of people, after a while of being an actor on a show and playing it for so long, you become the character. Alan Alda will always be known as Hawkeye,
Right.
or Telly Savalas would always be known as, Kojak, or whatever. So he became Little Joe.
Right.
And he became a Western character because he was on other Westerns too. That wasn't the only one he was on.
Right.
And they would turn the reins over to them because they became so totally immersed in the character that they became the character. So who better than to write an episode or direct an episode than Little Joe himself? And I think that when he got to Little House, the first couple of seasons were great, and then it started to become the Michael Landon show. And a lot of people, the regular stars on the show loved him, but for different reasons.
That happened with Fred Dryer on Hunter too, and that shit went downhill.
I've heard a lot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, when he started producing, and it all became about his ego, and it wasn't what it was. Dante said Dante used to do security for celebrities and stuff. He said that's how he felt about John Bon Jovi.
Oh wow, yeah. I love his music too. That would be somebody I would love to meet.
Dante has some wrestling questions for you too, which we're going to get into that next because, man, you've just done so much. As a matter of fact, if we're going to bring up your wrestling, let's show this. That is you, aka Wildcard.
Wow, I was so thin.
You were wrestling champion of the USWA and the CWL in the late 1980s, and you were telling me behind, when we were backstage, that you had also done some stints with NWA. And you told me a funny story about Ric Flair.
No, I can't repeat that. I'm just going to tell you right now that he has been he has a reputation for being a joker and on the slightly perverted side. And I'll
You can tell the story. It's as long as you keep it, the language good. You can tell the story.
no, I'm not going to repeat that because I'll
Okay.
be. You watch. I'll be in court like 5 minutes.
Okay. All right.
Plus,
Um,
he has a daughter, and I doubt that she would like to. I doubt that she'd like to hear that story. But
Dante, what's the worst wrestling bump you ever took?
well, actually, that's kind of an unusual thing. I was wrestling in Ogden, Utah. That's where I won my CWL belt. It was an outdoor cage match, and it was at a college. They were taping it for television. It was at a college where there was a steel cage out on a football field, and the stands, and there were chairs in the football field. Um, in those days, it was almost like smaller organizations were trying to do pay-per-views. They were trying to do like big things, and they didn't have the outlet for it, so they would do big things, and they would put them like uh, uh, on television as an attraction for people to keep watching the show. It's not like today. Everybody takes, there's like a ladder match or a steel cage match or a title match every episode. Back then, it was like maybe you saw one a month, and it was just regular matches. So we were taping for the show, and it was myself and Pat Nealon, who was the Snake Charmer, huge wrestler out of Boston. Can't remember all the places that he wrestled, but he wrestled for a lot of the organizations. I know he was AWA. I know he was WCCW with Von Erichs. So we wrestled for 57 minutes, 58 minutes. It was hot and sunny, and it was just burning us up. As a matter of fact, I had blood all down the side of my face, and I had gotten a tan around that. So when they washed it all away, it just left like this impression all the way down my arm. And uh, the way that every organization does steel cages differently. One would, like mostly the NWA or Mid-South, would lock the cage. Two people would be locked in, and the referee would be in there with them, and they would fight, and you couldn't leave the cage. Other ones would be you had to walk, you had to be the first to, climb over the top or walk out. WWF did that. Some there was no referee and there was no rules, but you still had to pin. So it was always different. The one that we were in was more of a WWF style. There were referees on the outside. You had to be the first one to walk out. I walked out. I put my foot on the top stair, and I went this way and the stairs went that way.
Oh.
And I landed face down on the field, and the referee grabbed my arm and lifted it. And it was funny because a couple of years of wrestling and some hard knocks, didn't really get hurt at all. But when he lifted up my arm, the way he lifted up my arm, he tore my rotator cuff in my shoulder.
Oh.
So I always tell people my biggest bump came from a referee.
Now, wrestling is obviously physical. You can't fake falling and jumping and all that stuff, but there is a performance aspect to put out your character. Do you think being a child actor helped you with performing of your character?
Well, let me say this. Let me say, as politicians say, let me say this about that. When people ask about like the validity of it, is it fake? Is it real? I always tell people, it's like ballet or opera. There's rehearsed things on and on and on. There's a certain amount of stagecraft to it, but you have to remember, if you go to see wrestling matches, it's one and done. If you go to see like ballet, I mean, how many millions of performances have there been of the Nutcracker?
Right.
Versus, I did that one match and I never repeated that performance, versus him or anybody else. So there's that aspect to it. Acting really helped me when it came to wrestling, and then wrestling really helped me when it came to doing comics years later. So you feed off of it, really. Um, like I told you before when we were yakking, I'm an entertainer. Like I really enjoy just putting out and having a good time. Um, I did singing, I did dancing when I was a kid. I was a child actor. Wrestling, did a lot of comic art, did a lot of film art. I was on the radio a couple of times, really enjoyed that. Did a lot of plays, really enjoyed that too. Um, I just enjoy the entertainment part. Now I do comics, trading cards. I do work on films as an artist. I also do a lot of voice acting. So,
Yeah, we're going to get into all of that. As far as the wrestling, Dante has a few questions. He says, "Do you still speak Carney because of your wrestling days? If so, what's a goozle?"
No, I didn't. There really wasn't any Carney talk. We used to say, obviously taking a bump is one thing. Wrestling moves, we would, lariat and Beal, things like that. But it wasn't really too much Carney talk. A lot of times, what happens is you'll go to a certain area, like in the Mid South, and you'll meet up with like a group of guys, like behind the scenes mainstays of that organization, and they'll turn around and they'll have like a certain way of talking. Then you'll like take the bus and go to another one, and they'll have the same thing, but they'll have different terms, maybe the same words, different terms for what they are, different definitions. I mean, for what they are. So I never really got into the Carney talk too much. As for a goozle, that's a new one on me. The only thing I can think of is we used to say, get goozed, which means, getting bloody during a match. But I don't know if that's the same thing or not. I'm not sure what a goozle is.
He said, USWA, how is it working for Jerry Jarrett and Jerry Lawler?
Well, actually, this was before them. Lawler and Jarrett had worked after. You have to remember there were 3 different USWAs. The first one that came out was connected to the AWA, and it split off into the California Wrestling League, which was CWL. And then who I mostly, did because I was located in California and I wrestled in Vegas a lot. Years later, the USWA became more prominent on television and then disappeared. And then it got brought back. And then people like Jarrett, Lawler, and a couple of others were a part of it. When I was with the USWA, it was run by Herb Nero, who was one of the money men for the WWF. USWA was like a farm team for basically, it was like minor leagues and the way they have connections to major league teams. So, and it was on, what was it? I can't remember the name of the channel. It was on Channel 56 in California every Saturday morning from like 10 to 11, let's say. And then right after that, then they would have, Lucha Libre for an hour. And then it would be WWF for an hour, whatever their Saturday morning show was. And then it would go into like, talk shows and stuff like that. Yeah. Jim Cornette was a really nice guy. I saw him at a show maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Really nice guy.
Keith wanted to know, did you ever meet the Road Warriors, and who was your role model in wrestling?
I met the Road Warriors in Las Vegas. We actually had a tag team tournament in Vegas. The Road Warriors, what was it? The Road Warriors, Demolition, and the Samoans were 3 of the 10 teams that were in there, and they actually disqualified themselves when they I think it was they either stayed out of the ring too long or they went over the top rope, because again, certain areas have certain rules. But I think it was I think they were out of the ring too long with the two characters that were the bushwhackers.
I remember them.
Right? Bushwhackers, sheep herders, whatever. But they couldn't call themselves by those names. So I guess they were Luke and Butch. I guess it was, or whatever their real first names were. Those were the names that they went by, because the NWA and the WWF name they couldn't use. But I'm pretty sure, if I remember right, um, yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I don't like to talk bad about people.
By the way, Henry Martinez says hi, Rusty.
Hey, Henry, and I saw a guy named John before. Hi, John.
I was going to say, and Joe Ryan says, hey, Rusty.
Hey, I know Joe.
And John Ottinger said hi.
Hey. So Joe is a fantastic artist, by the way. Kubert School graduate and a fantastic artist. We've worked together on a couple of trading card sets, and he was also at a show in New Jersey with me one time. He's a really nice guy.
Well, one day you should be a guest on the show.
He should be. You guys should look him up on Facebook and look at his
I believe, I follow him. I think he just got his studio together too. Actually, he built like not a shed per se, but it was a studio in his backyard.
Right. He has a really nice studio. Yep.
So I just want to show everybody who came in late. This is Rusty when he was wild card heavyweight champ.
Yeah. I still didn't know how to shave back then either.
So you're a child actor. You've worked with a lot of great people, and then you decide to be a wrestler. How does that work?
Well, like I said before, I was a little kid, and I had been smaller than everybody. Everybody was a couple of years older than me. As a matter of fact, funny story: when I was in high school, I wasn't allowed to take sex ed, and I wasn't allowed to take driver's ed because I was too young. All the other kids that took driver's ed were like 17, 18. I wasn't allowed to take it because I had just turned 14. So, and I wasn't allowed to do sex ed, which I thought was even funnier. So when I got to, when I was in high school, I got messed around with a lot, like all kids do. And then when I got to college, I was on a different playing field because I was an adult and I had, I was a little bit bigger. So I had always taken an interest in boxing. So I put on the gloves, I trained, I went in and I did a match, and I got the crap beat out of me. And I was on the canvas more than Picasso. And there was a really large guy came up to me after the match, and he said, I saw you boxing. And I said, yeah, if that's what you want to call it. And he's like, yeah, you did a pretty bad job. And I said, thank you for the compliment. And I was very lighthearted about it. I mean, you unless you have a passion for something, if you play with it, it's play. So I didn't have a passion for it. I just wanted to do it. Well, he said to me, I bet you wanted to just pick that guy up and beat the crap out of him and kick him and on and on and on. You look like, with your body language, like you were throwing yourself into your moves. And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, my name is Dr. Jerry Graham, and I'd like to have you come wrestle with us. You could train. It's the same place, same ring and everything. So I said, yeah, that sounds like it'd be great. I was a big wrestling fan anyway. So I said, yeah, that'd be great. Dr. Jerry Graham was the uncle to superstar Billy Graham, who was champion in the WWF. And he was also in the WWF, which is what, McMahon Sr. ran before McMahon Jr. took over. That was the real circus. Everybody used to say McMahon ran the circus. This was the real circus. And I got introduced to a lot of wrestlers that I became friends with at the time, and did a lot of side matches and did a lot of stuff after that. Really enjoyed it. It was great. I really did.
Gallo wants to know if you did you wrestle in the UWF or the Texas Federations where the Von Erichs wrestled?
I wrestled in the WCC with the Von Erichs a couple of times. I was in the Sportatorium in Dallas. That I enjoyed. There were actually, that's kind of a funny thing. When I wrestled there, my name was, because I'm from Brooklyn, New York, so my name was the Brooklyn Warrior, and I changed my name because there were so many other warriors around. There was Road Warriors, and there was a Dingo Warrior, and there was this other guy that was quote unquote the Warrior, and whatever. And people kept confusing me with other people, so I had asked, what would be a good name? Well, they wanted me to use my last name and play off of Gilligan's Island and all this other stuff. Thank God I wasn't
there.
there.
Come out with a white cap,
Yeah,
and someone gets to hit you with it.
Yeah, I did. Actually, I'd rather come out with Marianne and Ginger. But the thing is that thank God I wasn't there for a long time, because they were very gimmick happy, and I said, I'll look for something. And then when I went to Vegas, we all gambled. That's the thing. We all gambled. We would go to the Showboat in Old Vegas. We would wrestle. It would be on like a local TV, and we would do it like 8 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon. They would cut. They would put it on that night, and we'd be sitting there gambling at the Stardust on the Strip, which has been torn down by now. And we used to do things like eat steak dinners right at the roulette table. People would come up and ask us to sign stuff, and we'd pose, and the whole bit. We'd put up, pick up people and pretend to bite them and all this other stuff. People thought that was great.
So if I see the show, can you come up and pretend to bite me?
Yeah, exactly. Can you?
I'm asking you to.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to bite me. You don't know what you'll get.
Gallows said you must have ran into Brad Gilbert and Sting when they were the Blade Runners. Man, that's old. Wow. Yeah.
I remember when they were when it was.
Keith just said it.
What was it? Rockin' Sting, America's Team. Sting is a nice guy. He always had a little bit of a street type vibe to him. He's a little gritty, a little earthy. Nice guy though. Incredibly professional. I would say he is a encyclopedia of wrestling. I personally think that he's very underused, very overlooked. He kind of disappeared for a while, and then
came back with that looking persona.
One of the things that a lot of people don't realize is a bunch of the wrestlers started investing their money in different things outside of the ring. So guys like Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and
he's my favorite wrestler.
I did a show with him in Rhode Island a couple of years back, and what a great guy to talk to. And he remembered me, which is, a plus, because my own kids don't remember me.
I was so happy when he beat Randy Savage for the belt, and then he lost it right away. I'm like, no!
I hated Randy Savage. Oh, my God.
I liked Randy Savage, but I was happy to see Ricky the Dragon Steamboat finally win, and it was such a good match, and then he took it away from him right away. I was like, no!
I liked the character Randy Savage, like as a wrestling fan, loved it. I couldn't stand Randy Poffo. I couldn't stand him.
How was Leapin' Lanny though?
Years ago, the guy that got me into it, Dr. Jerry Graham, used to be his manager, and he used to run around and call himself like the professor.
Right.
And he had like big glasses, and he would hold a book. Mm-hmm. And then years later, Lanny did that same shtick for WWF, well, WWE, I guess, at the time. And it didn't go over well, but it went over well great, because it was almost like a Gorgeous George type of, nose in the air type thing. $1 Million Man actually borrowed a lot of that when he put on that, because Ted DiBiase was just a cowboy bruiser.
Right.
And he became the $1 Million Man with Virgil. And oh my God, that pissed off everybody. They had to quiet the crowd down on commercial breaks and on intros just when he came out, because he had them going. They hated him.
But that's good. He was a heel. He was doing his job.
Yeah, but it was a little over.
Really?
You don't have to be a heel that disliked, because one time I was coming to the ring and people were happy and they were clapping and on and on and on, and some old lady just bashed the back of my head with her purse.
Really?
And I literally stumbled forward. And I'm like, what the hell? But unfortunately, she was a little Italian grandma, and there was an Italian guy in the ring, and I guess she didn't want me to beat the meatballs out of him. But
you didn't want to be her grandson doing something wrong.
It was pretty funny, actually.
By the way, Kevin, how you doing? Kevin says hello.
Hey, how you doing, Kevin? Let me see some of the comments. I wish I could talk to them, but there's no place for me to type like in the.
Oh, it's okay. I'll pull up the questions for you.
Big fan of Tim Roberts. Yeah, I liked him. I almost did a movie with him once, a small movie. Really nice guy. I'm glad that he cleaned up his act. I know that him and his daughter were estranged for a very, very, very long time.
Yeah.
Dante. Yeah, that happens. People getting stabbed in the back. And
that's insane.
I know that Bruiser Brody was killed by another wrestler while they were in the shower in a match. In an arena after the matches. Certain places you really got to be careful.
Wow.
A lot of times it's like prison rules, man. You go out and you perform, and then you run. I remember the days when you could, you'd go out and you'd wrestle, and they didn't want you to do anything. They don't want you to have any fluids in you. Nobody has to use the bathroom in the ring.
Right.
On and on. Then you'd come out and there'd be like buckets of chicken and aluminum trays of noodles and on and on and on. Fruit, take your fill, go in the locker room, wash up, do a couple of interviews, get the hell out of there, and don't come back. I remember sleeping in the locker room on a pile of towels in the shower, because there was, 10 guys in a hotel room. There wasn't enough floor for me to lay down.
Wow.
Pardon me. So
after wrestling, where do you go from there?
Back to acting, did a little radio, did a couple of voice parts. Comics and comic art has always been my big thing. I've worked in comics and in trading cards since, between 78 and 79, I got my first couple of starts. And then my big start was when I did artwork for the movie Heavy Metal. And that was huge for me. That was between 80 and 81. I enjoyed that. My agent had gotten me that. And that was around the time that I met Stan Lee, and he gave me my first job.
What was that?
I did artwork for the Marvel British comic. They had a bunch of British weeklies where they would reprint, and then they would feature new covers and new pinups. So the picture of Captain America that I did, that was like he was jumping across, would be Big Ben in the background, their big clock. And that got used in one. And also I had inked was it the Thing? No, it was the Hulk. I inked a Hulk piece that was used in another one. So I was really happy. And then I worked did a couple of art pieces for Comics Buyer's Guide, which was a huge newspaper at the time. And I really enjoyed that, because I had already been doing advertising. So artwork, for my area in comics was a lot better than, draw a mailman or draw a dog eating, Alpo.
But you also did storyboarding for the Avengers and Raimi's Spider-Man and Captain America.
light stuff, mostly production art. IMDb, when they first started listing credits, they only listed artists a certain way. So when it says storyboards for a couple of them, I did do a couple, but it was all production art. Then when they started opening up the art area, I think it was me that actually started that, because I told them in a couple of detailed emails how much we have to do behind the scenes. So it's not just continuity. Like there's continuity artists, there's people who do Xeroxing, there's you know cell shaders, and on and on and on. And obviously now a lot of digital stuff, there's digital
Right.
production. uh, they were overlooking tons of people. It's just like saying I was a stunt man, let's say, but they don't list you as being a stunt man.
Right.
You're either an actor or you're an extra, which made no sense. Now they're run by Amazon, so it's a different story.
Kevin
But
wanted to ask, what are some of your favorite memories from working on the for the art department for Avengers?
well, I didn't get a chance to actually go to the studio and do stuff. I actually worked from home. I did all the artwork and then emailed it in. It's kind of a dry story. Uh, One of the best experiences that I had was I got into a verbal battle with somebody over the way some of the characters moved. So, like the Hulk, if you see that scene where he's, throwing around Loki,
Yeah, great scene.
I tried to explain to them that he's not a gorilla. He's not really a gorilla. If you look at the very first Hulk movie that came out, I think that's that terrible one that Ang Lee directed.
The Gumby, yeah.
Yeah, he's more ape-like, more gorilla-like. He doesn't walk the same way.
Right.
I mean, the way I always thought of the Hulk was he was like Haas on Bonanza. That's the way I thought. He's a bigger guy. He's got a little bit of a gait when he walks. He's a tiny
Well,
bit.
he works for being big, but he's not like
Yeah.
right. He's not on all fours.
He's lumbering. The Thing, on the other hand, is not like that. The Thing is more like a bodybuilder. He walks straight. He's got shoulders in a certain way, whether that's because he's made of rocks or the way he is. But I always said, the Thing was modeled after Jack. Jack always thought of himself as being, a rough, rigid guy. He was Jewish. He had opinions. He was, funny with he was your weird uncle with the crass remarks, and he smoked cigars, and he was in the service. Jack was the Thing. And he was, a fighter pilot and a test pilot. So when he became the Thing, I can't imagine that he went from being upright to like hunched over and acting
Right.
like an ape and everything. So I told him, said, the Hulk is more like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And more people equate him being green as being Frankenstein, but actually it's Jekyll and Hyde. And I got into a cute little verbal battle that wound up being in sketches and going back and forth. We did like for one of the biggest ones, I think, was what was it, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies. I worked on 2 and 3.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, buddy. My throat's killing me. And
Get some water or something if you need. Go ahead.
one of the things, I just hate doing that. That's all. One of the things that was interesting is they were making him like a football player. Had a broader chest than normal, and he like ran into battle. They were making him more like Captain America with that kind of a frame. And we actually, the artist that I was working with, Tim, I don't remember his last name, him and I were working on it, and we actually drew lines. You're too young, but years before, they used to have these things where you would get patterns for dancing. So you'd like right away to like the, Arthur Murray school, and they would send you this giant thing that was like the size of like two posters, and it would show where your feet would go, and you'd be like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Well, we had to actually draw the lines to show where the feet moved. And we told him he's moves like he's more of a ballet dancer or an ice skater. We had to show that there was fluidity in the character, because some of the battles that they were getting him into were, he was like rough and tumble, like he was Captain America. I should have sent you that picture. I wonder, maybe I'll see if I can send it.
Okay. I think he accidentally disconnected. Well, we're waiting for him to connect again. Anybody who's had questions that we haven't addressed yet, I know Heather had a question about comics. Ask it again in a few minutes when we get to the comics, and we'll do that. And he's back.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. It was really strange. It just, all I saw was, it said standing by.
Oh, that was weird.
Yeah. But anyway, to continue, they just made him very rough and tumble, like he was, what's the word that I'm looking for? Like he was Captain America, or like, he fits into a different category.
Well, because there was agility and his grace, and he has these movements that are much more limber than other people.
Right.
Yeah, it would be more athletic than just go running like a fullback or something.
Right. And we tried to show that he was very lithe, and he had like dancing type moves along those lines. We also did artwork for the Venom character. It was supposed to be, well, I shouldn't say this because it never happened, and I don't know what the legalities of it were, but it was supposed to be Jim Carrey was going to take over as Venom, and we actually drew pictures.
Really?
Yeah, and that
didn't happen.
Well, at the time, it wasn't the creepy nut that he is now, but he was actually, he's obviously always been a very talented person. There, I sent you in Facebook. I sent you the Spider-Man, and you could see the lines we had to draw on the floor.
Let me see if I can share that. Go ahead and I'm gonna see. Go ahead, keep going. I'm gonna see if I can get that going for you.
I'm also gonna see if I have the Venom. I might as well go from there. Hold on. This was here's one of the storyboards from Spider-Man 2.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm gonna. Oh, good. I got that going. Let's see if I can get this going. Put him on a thing. So you did storyboarding. Gallo was asking if you work with Bernie Wrights and heavy metal.
No, it was another one of those things. Actually, with heavy metal, I was young and I was in California, and we would get like, at the time, I always tell people, no fax, no FedEx, no cell phones, no Xerox, no digital anything. And I got a call, and it'd be like, hello, who is this, Rusty? And I'd be like, yeah. Well, okay, we're trying to keep the cost down, because it was like $2.99 for the first minute and like 50 cents each additional minute. So calls were like, it's not like today. You could pick up the phone and call anyone in the US for nothing on your cell.
Right.
But back then they just price gouged you. So, and they had to, because, it was the birth of all of that. It was like, we from now on, you might want to record these calls or take notes. Wanted to keep it blah, 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 in under a minute, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye. So I would do sketches, and there was no overnight shipping. There was no airborne FedEx, Tiger Air, nothing. So I remember doing like 50 drawings, and they put them in a black bag, and it went in an airline seat. I remember driving to LAX, and we actually had to book a flight for the drawings, and it would go as freight, and it would fly to Canada, and which is where the offices were that I worked for. They rejected the first 50 pictures that I did. Yeah, there's the Spider-Man. Notice the lines underneath. Like we had to show them, it was like he was like an ice skater or like like a dancer. There was some fluidity going on there. But I did about 50 drawings. They rejected them all. At a course, I mean, I have to say, it was just one of those things. The part that I worked on was the B-52 sequence, the Pacific Pearl. That was the World War II plane that was being followed by the Green Orb, and then he crash lands into the like a zombie, like an airport. It was an airplane zombie graveyard. So I did a lot of background stuff for that, drew a couple of skeletons, things of that nature. They started to send me direction of what they wanted. Actually, for the magazine, I actually drew a knife. I wish I still had that. It was like a bloody knife, and they used that on subscription cards, which I mean, a job is a job is a job, but it was just hysterical. It was just hysterical funny because, you want to be in the magazine and they're like, we have an assignment for you, want to just put together like these 3 or 4 things and send them in. So I do. And it's on a subscriber card. So technically it was in the magazine until everybody picked up the magazine and the subscriber cards fell on the floor outside of the newsstand. But, that was my big foray into the magazine. When they did the second movie, thank God they didn't call me back because that second movie, what a lot of people don't realize is, just real quick, because I love telling this part of it. What a lot of people don't realize is heavy metal came from a foreign magazine called Metal Hurlant. Heavy metal meant strength and hard and literally like heavy metal. I mean, we're talking about Iron Man walking around clanking as he's walking, heavy metal. They took it literally and brought in heavy metal bands and punk bands to do the second one. The first one was great. The music was, I think it's the best soundtrack there's ever been.
Yeah.
The first one. And funny story, there was a double album release that where it opened up, like here's the face of the album, and it would open up, and on the inside was all artwork from the film. And somebody brought it to a convention in New York. It was called We Need a Hero Con, and it's a small show at a museum. It was nice. And they brought it up and they asked me to sign it. And I'm like, wow, I've never seen this before. And the guy told me the story. There's some that are just a sleeve because these are vinyls. Right. And then there are some that open up like this. And the ones that open up like this were the disc. If you hold it up to the light and you turn it just a little bit, you can see the heavy metal logo etched into the groove.
That's cool.
Another one that's really cool, if anybody wants to look it up, Styx did their Paradise Theater album, and when you hold that up, you see the girl from the theater etched into it. And the Beatles' White Album, rare pressings of it, have the W, the number 9 etched into it because of that song. But anyway, off the subject. But anyway, so I signed it, and I said, "Are you sure you want me to sign this?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to get other people to sign it too." I don't know who's out there still signing. I've only seen one other person signing stuff, but he told me, he's like, "This is like $150 to $200 rare version," and I'm like freaked out. I'm like, "Uh-oh, what did I? What if I misspell my name? Blah blah blah." I was like all freaked out because usually people bring up like $3, $5 items.
Right.
I think the most I ever had was somebody, those when you go to like a bus bench and they have those giant posters in a frame. somebody brought up one from The Walking Dead, and I signed that. And I'm like, "Where'd you get this?" And he says, "It's a bus bench poster. You don't want to know." Okay. So I signed it. He had like 100 signatures on there. All the cast, walkers, artists, writers, everybody. So, do I have any heavy metal art for
That's
sale?
what I ask you that.
Yeah, I no, I wish I did. Everything that I did got turned in, all originals. There was no way to scan anything because there wasn't anything like that at the time. We're talking about 80, 81. There was nothing. There was no cell phones, no scanners, at least on my level commercially.
Right.
No overnight, no nothing. Fax was barely around. We had this version of Xeroxing called Veloxing, and it was basically it was picture a fax that was grainier than a fax, and it was photo paper. And it always felt wet when you touched it, even though it was dry. Always felt wet. But we had Veloxes, and that's really just about it. There was no way to keep it. I remember tracing some of the pictures so I could keep some of the angles for the next time I did pieces. I remember trying to take pictures with Polaroids, but all the original artwork that I did, all the cell stuff, everything that I did got shipped to Canada, and that was about it. I did go to a Wizard Philadelphia, was it Philly? Yeah, Wizard Philly show, and somebody brought one of the pictures up to me, and I took a picture with it and signed it, and I thought that was nice. But the most I have anything left of it is I have the theater program, the rare theater program, and I sign it, and I put like a small sketch up in the top left corner. And I brought those to shows. Every time I bring those to shows, they sell out. So it was very funny. This kid came up to me online and said it was either his uncle or his father ran a theater in the Midwest, and he had boxes of programs that he had found in the theater: Superman, Howard the Duck, Back to the Future,
Nice.
heavy metal, movies like that. And I'm like, oh, those are gold. And he said, well, obviously at the time, nobody was interested in them,
Right.
and he just sold me the box of the heavy metals, and
Oh, cool.
that's what I had. Yeah, they're great. A couple of rusty staples on them, pardon the pun, but they're great, and they actually have like when you open it, there's like that piece of paper that you fill out to order other programs, like an order form. People would rip those out and throw them away. These all have them, which
Nice.
makes it even cooler because it's kind of complete.
Absolutely. So let's get into your comic career.
Oh, I saw Brooklyn, and that caught my attention. Where did you grow up in Brooklyn? I lived in Brooklyn on 53rd Street between Avenue H and Avenue I.
So
Yeah, I knew that was a big thing, right? But I loved
so you obviously you've done comic art, you've done comic interiors, you've done comic covers. What would you say is the difference style wise and like procedure wise between storyboarding and doing comic books?
Well, comics is very refined commercially. I'm a little old fashioned. I don't do any digital work. I do everything by hand. Traditional art. So it's basically read the script, pencil, ink, color, which is what I enjoy. Um, Storyboarding is more like sketching. People don't seem to realize that storyboarding doesn't have to look perfect. They could be stick figures. They could be a tree could be a triangle. A car can be a rectangle. It's just directional work. It's like the difference between cave drawings and graffiti of today.
You
That's
really enjoy comic book art more, I would imagine, because you get into detail and
yeah, I do.
right?
Yeah, I'm not a continuity artist. In other words, I don't pencil for panels. I ink for panels. I enjoy inking more than anything. I started out doing some penciling, and I got it, but I didn't grasp it long enough to keep it.
Right.
So I got into inking. Actually, it was Jack Kirby that got me interested in inking. We were at a show together. We were at the Los Angeles Comic Book and Science Fiction Convention in California. We were at the Sunset Hyatt House, and on the second floor they had this giant ballroom. That what was the promoter's name? Oh, Bruce Schwartz, very big guy in California for shows. And I sat next to Jack, and Jack basically was one of those guys where he didn't bring anything. He just sat at a table, and everybody would bring stuff to him because he was legendary. And during kind of a dull point, we were chatting. It was great to chat with the king, and he was the one that gave me my first crow quill and gave me a swatch of Bristol board. And I just got very interested in inking. Penciling, he pointed out even little problems that I had. I just never really picked up the grasp of it. Now I can pencil like a cover. I do a lot of trading card work. I do a lot of pinup work, prints and things like that. You can see a lot of my artwork on my Facebook page because I just dump it all there. But it's just not a mainstay for me. When it comes to designing or when it comes to inking and coloring, that's where my forte is. I enjoy that a lot.
You've also created some books, though, some characters.
Yep.
For example, speaking of Captain America and everything before, you created a symbol.
Yep, the symbol started out being a character. What had happened was Marvel was going to do a revival of their Golden Age characters, and they were going to bring back like Namorita, and they were going to, Venus and Golden Eagle, and they wanted to create some new characters to go along with it. So I decided to do this character that was a homage of various patriotic characters. And that's where the symbol came in, basically the symbol of liberty. And it was basically supposed to be a group of heroes that no one had ever heard of. Something happens and they're gone, and nobody ever heard from them again. And it was actually listed on the Marvel roster. They advertised it a couple of times along with other characters and said that, coming soon and on and on and on. Then when the editorial staff changed hands, or maybe it was ownership that changed hands, automatically everything got dropped. Nothing got picked up, even their original ideas. It stayed on their roster for a very long time. And then I finally said, you know what? I want this back. I want to do something with this.
How did you feel about that, though? You were excited. You must have been excited that it was going to be on the Marvel roster. And
I was, but business-wise, it's a little different feeling today because I hate this term, but independent comic creators are very what's the word I'm looking for? They're very excitable. We're going to do a trading card. Oh my God, here comes our comic, and on and on and on. I had already been working for a while. So for me, it was work for hire. I created something. I was so glad that it was going to come out, but I wasn't overly excited because by the time they had already announced it, I was already on like my third job after that.
Right.
So it was, I didn't have the same feeling. If it was today and I created something in Marvel, or, well, maybe not Marvel, but if, some other company was to do something, maybe I'd be more excited because of the way the industry is going. Back then, it was just a job. It was, you just move on. But
what happened to the symbol once it didn't get picked up with Marvel?
Well, I got it back, and around 1997, I launched a comic book title called Test Drive. A lot of people don't know this, but Test Drive was the first multi-crossover comic book in the history of comics. It
Really?
featured 13 different characters at the time. There was characters from Image, Ariella the Warrior Nun, the one that's on Netflix right now. Dunn, or was it Herb Dunn had that in there? Rich Buckler did something. Gil Kane did something. Larry Welch, Todd Tochioka, very popular people at the time. But there were 13 different creators and companies involved with that. And then I also did an adult version called Sex Drive, and there was like 10 different companies involved in that one too. So, it was, at the time, it was pretty groundbreaking. Sales were incredible. I actually won an award from Diamond and Capital at the time for sales and release.
Nice.
This was back when there were distributors instead of, singular distributor. But the symbol appeared in tons of stories in other people's comics, anthologies or guest appearances, on and on and on. So what I did was, about year and a half ago, I created a giant size version of, it was like a 64-page version of the symbol, was one brand new, like 30-page story. And I reprinted a bunch of smaller stories.
Cool.
And it got a lot of attention. It was very popular.
Is that something somebody can pick up now if they wanted it?
All that stuff is on my Facebook page. All they got to do is message me. I'm actually working on a sales portfolio where people could buy prints and some of the comics.
Nice.
It's also on Indie Planet too. So
Okay.
Indie Planet, Drive Through Comics, they're all there. But just like my Mac and Trouble characters, their books are all there.
I was about to get into them too.
Yeah, there's a lot of free ones, by the way, too. I always tell people, if you go to Drive Through, there's like 6 issues of Mac and Trouble stuff that's all free.
Speaking of Mac and Trouble,
Yep, that's them.
Based on your kitty cats.
Yep, Mac is a handicapped cat. That's the tuxedo cat there, the black and white one. And I had, from wrestling, I had taken a nasty bump that wound up hurting me years later, and I had a very hard time with my back. I was in bed for like almost 3 years.
Oh, wow.
And the most I did was get up, play a video game, go back to bed. So my wife brought in this pair of kittens, and he was like, he wobbled when he walked, and I thought it was just, kitten. Being that. And what wound up happening was he had something called cerebellar hyperplasia. So I had to, which affects his brain. So I had to teach him to walk and
Coordination as well, yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, it affects coordination.
Yeah. And it wound up being that I wound up getting out of bed, going back into the studio and doing work again. So I always tell people, that cat saved my life. The other one is Trouble. We got Trouble right after, and we brought him into the house. They went nose to nose, and we thought they were going to fight. And literally, the two of them just turned around and went to the food bowl, and they've been good friends ever since. And that's basically where I'm at with them. They're Abbott and Costello around here. So I had
Is this a children's worthy story? Like, is this good for kids?
It's like the way Star Wars or Ninja Turtles is. It's not aimed at kids. It's just such general audience that it winds up being for all ages. Yeah, there's no foul language. Obviously, no nudity. It's a cat.
Right. They're already new.
Right. It's basically soft-hearted sci-fi. The way that we originally pitched it was, sci-fi has 2 brand new heroes. God help us all, that kind of thing. They're very sarcastic. So we have the film coming up. We're working on one of the trailers now. That's the ad for the film coming out next year, probably the end of next year. And it's being worked with Bombitos, which is a channel in the United Kingdom. They have a channel on Roku, and they have a channel on Amazon. Fritz the Cat. No, I wish it was Fritz the Cat. I loved all that stuff. But then again, I'm a kid of the 70s.
I was about to say that's a different,
yeah,
that's a totally different,
that would be a different kind of trouble. Let's put it that way. But Mac and Trouble are basically, like I said, soft-hearted sci-fi. They started out as newspaper strip characters, and then years later, I decided to start doing the comic with them. And the way it was okay. Mac found a wormhole in his litter box, and the two of them got dragged in. So they go from being kitties to like anthropomorphic version, like Ninja Turtles, along those lines. And they meet up with other heroes and other characters, and on and on and on. I've actually had a lot of luck with it. Over the years, the comics sell really well, and the strips actually, we've actually printed a lot of them in various magazines and newspapers.
Are you also the illustrator or just the writer?
Writer, and I've illustrated a few, but mostly it's inking.
Okay.
That's my big thing. I've worked with a couple of different artists. The artist that I work with the most on the comic and some of the strips is Dan Gorman, who is a very popular artist. He's worked on trading cards and comics all over the industry. He's probably one of the most talented artists I've ever worked with. And you'll see his art coming up. I just sent you a bunch of the
strips. We're together now.
And he worked on the original #1 comic with me, and you'll be seeing his artwork more and more, his stylings in the film as well, because this trailer, the still that you have up now, this trailer deals with the strips. It shows them in their cat version, but if you go, once you get to the second trailer, it's more like they're Ninja Turtles. They walk upright, and they're very funny. Trouble, when he gets extremely excited or extremely scared, his tail puffs out and he teleports. It's like oh my god, bam!
Nice.
Mac has he's the only cat in the world that has a pocket. So when he reaches into his pocket, he can get certain things.
Is it like the old Globetrotters cartoon where the guy would go into his hair, into his afro? And
picture something like that. It'd be like, Mac, we're in trouble. We need help. All right, let me see what I can do. Reach into his pocket.
My wife has a purse like
hammer. It'd be like a light bulb, a ballet shoe, blah, 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 that kind of thing.
Yeah, my wife's purse is like that. I'd be like, I want to get a spoon. She's like, I don't have one.
Aren't they all? Well, see, he can't control what he gets, though.
Okay.
So when he reaches in, it's like, a hammer, a light bulb, a ladder, a ballet shoe, something like that. And
people can go to www.macandtrouble.com.
It brings them to their exclusive Facebook page, and there's a link there for their free comics, and pictures get put there from shows. There's a lot of albums of photos and albums of appearances. The 7-foot Mac always, goes with me whenever I do appearances. And we've done a lot of trading cards. We've done over 100 promo cards with him and stars. He's been with everything from Klingons to popular television characters. Gene Snitsky, the wrestler from the WWE, good friend of mine. He's appeared with Batman and appeared with various models and on and on and on the cards. Him and Mac and Trouble also um, appeared on a card with the Green Hornet and Kato.
Nice.
Joe, if you want to see anything about Mac and Trouble, go to drivethrugcomics.com. A bunch of the issues are free. You can just download them right from there.
Very cool. So, I mean, you have acted, you've wrestled, you've done the storyboard for movies. You do comic books. You even did Red Anvil, like Joe Martino and Dave Ryan, their universe, which is a cool.
Yeah, Mac and Trouble actually appeared in their War of Independence, which was a great thrill for me because I'm a kid at heart. You know, I really enjoy. I get excited. I really enjoy seeing my own stuff. It's one thing to work on something for somebody else. You know, it's going to come out and blah blah blah. Like I just did a card job for somebody, and I'm like, yeah, I'll do 10 cards. They send me the cards. Yeah, you know, whatever. You draw the cards, you send them in, and it's work. You know, and if you come up with a nice card or a really good one, you'll show it off online. When it's your own baby, that's a different story. That's where there's nitro in the tank and open highway, and you're really, you know, you're ready to go. That was the thing for me. So I was excited to be in that. They had some incredible stuff there. Let me see. Oh, the pop pick. Yeah, it's funny. Let me see if I can pull that one up. Just give me a split second here. I know. Let me see. It's in the upcoming one. Hold on a minute. Where'd it go?
So, besides the animated movie or it's a movie or a show?
It's a movie. Like I said, it's with the Bombitos. The producer's name is Michael Das, and he's a fantastic producer, and he's working on it with me. Basically, it is a combination of what starts out in the comic, and then it works towards their second adventure, which brings them with superheroes, and it brings them to fight zombies. I don't want to give too much away because honestly, it's very funny, but I don't want to give too much away.
And where is the movie going to be aired?
Well, obviously it's an independent film. So I know we have connections to a couple of different networks. I want to get it to everybody. Has these visions of being in the movie theater, but what they don't understand is when you're on an independent level, um, you it's a little bit of more of an uphill battle. If you get on the screen, there's a little bit of a build up. You're in the theaters. There's no build out. Then you've got a half life with DVD, extra footage, on and on and on, and then you're out. Being in streaming is a little bit better. The money isn't quite there, but if you're trying to market a product, it's really a little bit better. I'm personally looking for something like a Netflix
Right.
to contract with. I just really like that a lot. There's two of the
Kevin.
cards. Is there any way to make it bigger or?
No, the image you sent me, that's as big as it shows.
Oh, that stinks. Well, anyway, the one on the left is a parody of Clerks. We made it to be cats, and Scott Chiaffo and Brian O'Halloran, good friends of mine from the movie Clerks, are on that card. and the other one is the pop figure. It's a mock-up. It's not really a pop figure.
Right.
We actually made a parody of it and called it a plop figure.
Ah,
And
parodies.
yep, that one's a parody of Jaws, obviously. Max in the boat, and Trouble is the quote unquote shark from Paws.
Mhm.
So we've done about 100 of those cards, all different photos, all different stars, parodies of things, artwork. Sometimes they're pictures of stuff that I'm working on. Other times it's, Mac in Trouble, or sometimes they're pictures. The art is mixed with an actual photo, which I think is actually kind of funny. If anybody goes to my Facebook page, there's a whole gallery of the promo cards, all different kinds. And I always tell people, if you're ever interested in any promo cards, they're 100% free. All you have to do is just send the postage.
Cool.
I sent like 25 of them to somebody who sent me a couple of dollars postage. Just basically signed a few or all of them if they want, wrapped them up and stuck them in an envelope and send it out.
Nice.
They're just promotional cards. They're not meant to be for sale. So I adhere to that. A couple of the cards became very famous. The card with Gene Snitsky, the wrestler, was huge. The card, let me see, there was one card where he was with, let me see, Mac was with Boba Fett. That one was very popular. There was another one with him in a Klingon behind bars, like they were in a jail cell. They had a facade at the Amazicon show where it was like, there was bars, and you
Right.
stood behind them, and it looked like you were in jail. Um, Connie Woods, the actress that was in Twin Peaks, that one was a huge one. That one went quick. But there's tons of others. There's a couple of different Batman cards. There's a Batman and Wonder Woman, Pirates, on and on and on. But like I said, they're all free. People just go up and send me the postage, and they can have as many as they want.
So going back to your child acting, though, and just over your career, who is an actor that who was your favorite actor that you got to work on set with, even if it was just a short stint?
Uh, okay, where I lived in California was in Burbank, and the city was called Toluca Lake. Toluca Lake was like a circle overlapping two squares.
Hi, Gregory.
So, hi, Gregory. So one square would be Burbank, and the other one would be North Hollywood. About a couple of blocks away from me was Bob Hope's house.
Oh
He
wow.
didn't go too far. And I worked at NBC, which was only about a half a mile away for a while. I did a lot of their television, and I did a lot of commercials and things. So I got to work on a couple of Bob Hope specials, and I worked on a Mac Davis Christmas special. So Bob had guests. A lot of times, Bob Hope was one of those guys like Sammy Hagar, where there's like tons of guys just backstage, all fruiting around and doing whatever, and then they'd go out and party or whatever with Sammy after the show. Maybe one of them would walk on stage and go off. So Bob Hope is like that. When you walked into the original NBC studios, you walked through the parking lot. There was the guard's desk. Behind the guard's desk, there was the commissary where everybody ate. And then if you walked across the inner parking lot where only the employees were the studios. So up on one side, there was the Johnny Carson studio, which was also the George Burns theater studio, and Bob Hope would do his specials there. As a matter of fact, they had his face painted on the doors. And like I said, I did a couple of his specials. So I'm all dressed up, elf costume, like the other kids that were acting, that were dancing and singing. And I knew Bob, so him and his wife like I said, only lived a little bit away, like a couple of blocks. So I'm standing there and I'm getting a drink, and this giant walks up, and I looked at him and I said, do you know who you are? Being a little kid, obviously, 7 or 8. And he's like, I know who I am. And I said, it's amazing to meet you, and shook his hand, and on and on and on. Especially for me, it was a giant deal because it was John Wayne.
Oh,
And
wow.
I to this day, I can't let a month go by where I don't watch one of his movies. I know everybody thinks that he's a controversial dude. I know that he said some stuff. I know he did some stuff. Whatever. I don't give a crap about that. My whole opinion is, when you're an entertainer, I only look for what you do when you're entertaining. I don't care about your personal life. I don't care about your politics. I don't care about what goes on behind the scenes. I care about looking at the television or the movie, seeing what you did. That's it. I don't care about anything else. He was the Duke then. He's still the Duke, in my opinion, now. And that's all I care about. So, yep, the original Duke.
And who was the wrestler that you really loved meeting? Who was your favorite wrestler that you met?
Andre.
Yeah.
Andre was
My dad met him.
first time. Oh, really? The first time.
My dad used to go to the Garden and watch fights, and he went to a bar across the street from the Garden. And sure enough, sitting down right next to him is this massive man, Andre the Giant. And my dad was like, "Oh my God!" And Andre the Giant was just the friendliest, coolest guy talking to my dad. He bought him a drink.
He wasn't a wrestler. I mean, when you talk to him, he wasn't a wrestler. He wasn't a star. He wasn't, and he was the guy next door. He reminds me more of the guy standing on the curb at King of the Hill than he did as Andre. Andre, when I first saw him, he was backstage playing poker. He was a tremendous card player, and I came in. When I walked in, he was taller than I was sitting down.
Yeah.
And I was like freaked out. So I walked up, I shook his hand, my hand disappeared. It was like
my dad said the same thing.
It was like I put my hand in a mailbox. It's gone.
My dad said he felt like a 3-year-old shaking hands with a grown man.
His ring, his thumb ring was so big you could pass a silver dollar through it without touching the sides.
Wow.
His size, what was it, 17 or 18 boot? He was amazing.
His gigantism caused a lot of body pain for him, though, when he was wrestling.
Yes, it was like having triple arthritis at that point. Oh, let me see what Steve said here.
Well, yeah, we're going to get to that question.
Oh, okay.
Before we do that, Dante said he heard that Andre was great except for when he wrestled somebody he didn't like.
Yeah, he had a problem with Killer Khan in Philadelphia. Killer Khan was, the Mongolian, on and on and on. You know what it's like. He is the amazing Mongolian from Detroit. So, but he was, or wherever he was from. But Killer Khan kind of pissed him off a little bit. There was a lot of nonsense going around. He'd do some reverse knife edges and actually dig into him a little bit, a couple of back scratches, and really put his nails in. You know what the difference is. The difference is, this versus this. And to the crowd, they think, you're killing them, but you're just actually, whatever, showmanship. It kept us all on the edges of our seats all the way from grade school to college. So at any given time, Killer Khan was pissing him off. So Killer Khan did this move, and Andre got annoyed and grabbed him by the queue, that braid, that single braid out of his bald head, and tossed him. And Khan got up, and I don't know if he missed a move or if he did it on purpose. The only person I've seen that's sloppier than Khan was Brock Lesnar. Brock
Yeah.
Lesnar. Brock Lesnar is like a one-armed octopus. This guy was. I would like to say as dumb as a rock, but I would offend rocks by saying it. But Khan either missed a move or did it on purpose and broke Andre's ankle. And
Oh.
Andre, as big as he was, sidled up the ropes and was holding the rope, grabbed Khan by the queue, slammed his head like into the hand that he was holding the rope with. And a lot of people think those have a lot of elasticity. Those ropes are actually steel coiled cable wrapped in rubber. When they give, if you bounce off of one rope, you slender in the other three. It's like stretching a rubber band. It's not what people think, because a lot of times I would bounce off the ropes and I would be in the locker room and then I'd have welts or bruises along my rib cage. But he grabbed him, knocked him from a standing position. He stood in one spot and grabbed him and just kept messing around, and he smashed him up and just let him drop. And then he literally let go and fell right on top of him. I think he was either 5'10" or 497. I don't remember how much he landed right on him. Khan disappeared for a while after that. You didn't mess around with the boss. We all called him the boss backstage. You didn't mess around with the boss.
I think that Andre farted on Bad News Allen during a match.
There's actually, it's funny, I actually watched an interview, I think it was just yesterday, just out of curiosity. Carrie Elwes, that was in Princess Bride, told the fart story of Andre. It was Andre and, what was it? It was Carrie Elwes, Andre, and Rob Reiner, the director. And I don't know, I hate stuff like this, but it was very funny. Andre had not been feeling good, I guess, the whole day. And Carrie Elwes was on that scene where he was mostly dead in the
mostly dead.
Yeah. So they were
right.
They were about to start shooting, and then all of a sudden Andre had gas, and the gas lasted for like 15 seconds. He said they were on a facade. They had built this thing that looked like castle parapets, so that when you stood in front of it, it looked like you were in front of it, but it was just like a wooden fence, and it overlooked like the valley. The whole thing started rumbling and whatever. And he said Andre just had this look on his face like, so he's like, nobody talked for like minutes. And then Rob Reiner, director, said, Andre, are you okay? And he's like, ready to go, boss. That kind of thing. It was very funny. That was a locker room story for a while about, his legendary gas. I guess you could say. I remember one time somebody said that Ultimate Warrior was in the locker room and Andre was in there. Nobody liked the Ultimate Warrior. I'm just letting you know right now. Nobody liked him. Behind the scenes, he was sloppy. He would say stupid things. He was out of his mind crazy. A lot of people said it was steroids. You would take one shot of steroids and go work out. I mean, I never did, but that's what the typical thing was. He took like several shots and then it would just sit there and then whatever. I don't think he knew how to do very much of anything. And Andre walked in the door and turned towards Ultimate Warrior and just let one go, face level. Everybody just left. Like everybody, it was like
cleared out.
like that old joke about, you turn on the lights in a kitchen and all the roaches go running. This was this was like, and it was like, woo! Everybody
Go to
was
the Red Sea.
all out one door, out the other, run in the shower, out the window, kind of thing. So,
Well, as everybody knows me, they know how much I like The Princess Bride, because anybody who watches this show, you'll hear at the end of the show what I always leave with. So,
if you really like The Princess Bride, let me show you something real quick. See if I still have it.
while you're doing that, I'm going to put up Steve's question. One more wrestling question. My all-time fave wrestler, Johnny Walker, a.k.a. Mr. Wrestling 2, just recently passed away in June. Might you have had any meeting with, interaction, or crossed paths with him in any way in the past?
I'm not sure if he was okay. There were a couple of people. A lot of people don't realize this, but there were a couple of people who were actually Mr. Wrestling 2. So I'm not really sure which one. I know one of the Mr. Wrestlings was very good friends with Jimmy Carter, the president at the time, and actually visited the White House. That was the Mr. Wrestling that I had met a couple of times at shows. So I'm not sure if that was the same one or not. It's hard because there, like, for example, that was a. It's funny because on my screen they're giant.
Well, I mean, our windows aren't necessarily what everybody's looking at. They might have a bigger window. So,
well, yeah, it's true. But anyway, that Andre card and the Carrie Elwes picture that went on the back of the card, we had done those at a. We had done that card at a show called Inconceivable.
Nice. Inconceivable.
It lasted for 2 shows. It was a great little show. They had stars, a couple of Star Trek stars were there, and video game stars, things like that. Great show. Too bad it didn't last. But was that Walker? Okay, if that was Walker, Dante, then that was the one that the one that I had met a couple of times in California at the Channel 56 studios, where we had done some of our wrestling taping. We worked out with George de la Isla, who was Mr. Mexico. He was good friends with guys like Pistol Pez Watley and on and on and on. A couple of names from the older wrestling days. Like there was that superstar, what do you call it? There was that like superstar era of the WWF before it turned WWE, where Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior and the Road Warriors were all making those videos, and they were Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling cartoon, that big 80s 90s era. These were guys that were just before that.
Thunderlips is here.
I miss wrestling when it was like that because the characterizations were better. What I see today is actors, and what I saw yesterday was wrestlers. It's like the difference between college football and pro football. College players try harder. They have a little bit more heart, and their plays are because of the fact that the fans are more interactive. They're deeper into it because the fans are a mixture of the kids that go to the college, possibly friends of the students, the parents or family of the students that are playing. And then there's obviously a love for your alma mater and on and on and on. But college is better than the pros. So that's the way I looked at it. We were in it was stronger back then. The characters were better. Guys back then were the Indian, the cowboy, the warrior, the giant, on and on.
It was more colorful. It was more superhero type.
Right. And I also really enjoyed the fact that it was it wasn't as episodic as it is today. Today it's like, you know, someone has a feud and they go out and they fight, and you know, here on the next NXT we're going to have 3 title matches, and like I said before, you know, you'd maybe see 1 title match
Right.
every 6 months. You know, a ladder match maybe one. You know, Saturday night's main event was the pinnacle of wrestling, because that was a pay-per-view on TV,
Right.
that free.
I remember we were excited, yeah, because
And
you on the Sundays you didn't get to see the main stars really. You just
oh,
saw the second tier guys, third tier guys. So main
yeah,
event on Saturdays, like, oh, I get to see them come out.
right,
To me, that was, back then it was like spandex X-Men versus the bubble jacket
right,
X-Men now.
right. Well, let me see some of these things here. Bruno Sammartino, great guy. He used to tell stories about when he was younger. During the war, they were afraid to go into the towns because of the Germans. So he used to say stuff like they would eat snow and they would eat dandelions just to fill up their stomach so that they wouldn't have to go in. Let's see. Yeah, Roddy was a great guy, though. Actually, another funny thing that was kind of interesting, Roddy Piper was the youngest person to register for a state athletic commission license in the state of California. I think he was 16 years old, and I was the second youngest at 17.
Oh
So
wow!
yeah, he was a nice guy. I almost did a picture with him, but he passed away. Um, but
You know, I have a trivia about him. He did that movie "They Live" by John Carpenter, which I love that movie. Some might say we're living it now, but anyway,
yeah,
the alley fight scene with him and what's his name, Sam. I forget the actor's name, but anyway, there's a moment where Roddy hits him, and then Roddy goes, "Oh, I'm sorry," and it just seemed weird in the scene, and they
yeah,
fight. You know why that is? He accidentally really did hit
yeah, he
him,
hit him. Yeah,
and he got pissed, and they actually fought after. That was a real fight. Carpenter
yeah.
was like, "No, let the camera roll. Let's get this on camera." That's why that weird scene is in there.
Well, it's just like on Piper's Pit. He hated Jimmy Snuka. The two of them did not have a good relationship behind the scenes. So when Jimmy Snuka came onto his Piper's Pit segment, he smashed him over the head with that pineapple a little too hard, and it kind of rocked Jimmy a little bit. And he kicked Jimmy's butt, and he left quick because he knew if he stayed in front of the cameras, Jimmy was Jimmy was an islander, and he was known for drinking and indulging in things. I won't go into that. I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but he was afraid that he was going to lose his cool on live camera and go after him. So when Jimmy stood up and there was no Roddy there, the set was trashed. He was covered in pineapple and dirt from the floor. He got up and started screaming and ran out after him.
Wow.
Funny thing about Jimmy, a couple of years ago, I was at a martial arts convention in New Jersey, and I won an award for artwork. Like a lifetime achievement award for artwork, which is funny because, my life isn't over. Hopefully I didn't grab the trophy and then keel over.
Yeah.
But it was Jimmy Snuka that presented me with the award. And then, he passed away right after. But, anyway, about Bruno Sammartino, great guy, but his son actually got him into a lot of trouble because
Really?
David was late going to wrestling matches and was a bad drinker. So it was, that's right, Dante. It was a coconut. It wasn't a pineapple. I'm glad you said that. Thank you. But he hit him a little too hard and smashed him.
Hard too.
Yeah, they're not known for being light. So Gallo said St. Jones, Special Delivery Jones, was actually a pretty cool guy. I met him once, right after WrestleMania. I met him. I think he was a bodyguard that got into wrestling. He was really a cool guy. He was the one. Uh, um, he was the one that lost to King Kong Bundy in like the fastest match ever. I think it was like 6 seconds. They like rang the bell, and then King Kong Bundy ran across the ring and slammed into SD Jones and then laid on top of him, and the match was over. Yeah, it was for David Sammartino and Bruno Sammartino. David was late to a show, and Bruno kept saying, "No, he'll be here. He'll be here." When he finally got to the show late, he was drunk off his butt, and that caused a lot of problems. McMahon is actually a really nice guy. People don't seem to realize he's a business owner. He's in charge of guys. He creates a lot. He's actually been tossed around a lot. But you got to understand, the old man, McMahon Sr., was very strict with him. He wouldn't let him announce. He wouldn't let him in the ring. He wouldn't let him do anything. As soon as McMahon took over the WWF, which was the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, and it became the WWF, he really streamlined it. He became in his own. He would do the strut, and he would do commentating. It was him and Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon and
Bobby Heenan was great.
They all were great. Lord Alfred Hayes, I was talking to superstar Billy Graham a couple of years back. Lord Alfred Hayes was actually a stronger person behind the scenes. If you smelled wrong, he'd put a bug in someone's ear and you were gone. He created a lot of stuff that happened. Him and Chief Jay Strongbow and his brother Jules Strongbow were very strong behind the scenes. Years later, as wrestlers started retiring and dying, and the NWA turned into WCW and then became part of WWE, like Arn Anderson had that bad stroke where he couldn't use his hand for, I don't know if he still can or not, but he couldn't use his hand for years. He was actually a matchmaker and a rough behind the scenes as well. Also, guys like Iron Mike Sharp and a few others. But great guy. He was. A lot of people just don't understand that he runs an organization. So if he's hard, the organization wouldn't be as good if he wasn't hard.
Right.
You know, it's just that kind of thing. And it was also a very political thing too, because there were like 10 organizations when Vince came up. Look at how many there are now. 3, maybe, you know, not counting smaller and backyard and everything. I mean, highly visible television shows. Oh, I mean, he was great. Backlund was a square. I don't think that he was disliked. I think he was more like, he was kind of like a locker room joke. You know, he was a square, you know, and he didn't really go out and do anything or say anything. After we finished wrestling, we would, you know, for the day, we would go out and do all kinds of fun things. We'd go to public places and sign autographs. We'd go to restaurants. We'd, you know, hang out. I remember one time we wrestled like 6 or 7 in the morning all the way until about 3 in the afternoon. Then we went to someone's house and had a big giant barbecue, and all these people were there. We even brought some of the fans there. Even the girls just brought them and had fun. Everyone's family was there and whatever. But I remember going to a Denny's one time with Dr. Jerry Graham. Dr. Jerry Graham was about 6 feet tall, but he was like 600 pounds.
Oh, wow.
And he, yeah, exactly, Dante. And he was, we went to a Denny's. He couldn't fit in the booth, so he had 2 chairs seated at the end of the table.
Oh my God!
And he was bigger than the 2 chairs when he sat down.
Wow!
And he ate like 3 dinners, And I remember we rented a station wagon so we could fit everybody in. And he broke the shocks on the passenger side.
Oh,
So when I
jeez.
brought the car back to Hertz, rent a car, instead of pulling in this way, I actually pulled in the opposite way and had it so that the driver's side was facing the door. I quickly opened up the mail slot, threw the keys through, and left. And when they got there, probably somebody, started the car, started to drive, and the car is like listing to one side. It was literally on the ground on one
Wow.
side because we must have hit a bump or something. 600 pounds in one shot. That's a lot.
Wow.
And we used to do all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I don't know if you saw before. I was telling that.
Yeah, he came in late.
Sting was a nice guy. He's like a walking encyclopedia of wrestling. Knows of every hold, very professional, knows every person, knows every move. But I always, like I said before, I always felt like he was underused, underappreciated after a certain amount of time. Super nice guy, really gritty on a street level, but really a nice guy. I just wish that they would have used him more when he was in his prime.
Yeah.
I really do. NWA, he had because of the makeup and because of the wrestling physique that he had. He had that great tight body with the wrestling togs. He was a great sell. He could be put over in anything and it would just be believable.
Right.
It could be him versus an army and he'd be winning and people would believe it. But then, I don't know, he just hit a kind of a speed bump. I think when the NWA stopped being the NWA and it turned into WCW, I think a lot of the guys were just, I don't know, they were phoning it in.
Right.
It took the NWO to make WCW worth something. But before and after the NWO, it was just junk. Look at Paul White when he was,
Right.
the Big Show. When he was in the WCW, he was crap. Then when he became the Big Show, he was something.
Right.
And then that one magical moment was in the NWO where he was there and Scott Hall was high off his ass and he turns around and he says, "Wasn't Andre your father or something?" And like the whole crowd kind of hushed up and Bobby Heenan quickly started talking because it was a hot mic and it kind of ruined his credibility a little bit. He disappeared for like a couple of months, then showed up in WWE.
Well, these are going to be the last two wrestling questions because we're going to have to wrap up. But
cool.
Gallo said, did you ever meet Judo Gene LaBelle?
I remember when he was named Disco Gene LaBelle. I don't remember him using the name Judo. That might have been that. The other problem is that sometimes you meet guys who only visit for like one show, or they show up behind the scenes just to say hi to a friend or something.
Right.
Sometimes you meet a guy and he doesn't use his real name because he can't leave his area. That happened with I can't remember his name. Hacksaw Jim Duggan. That happened with him, and it also happened with The Undertaker.
My other favorite wrestler.
Yeah, Mean Mark, and then he was the biker, and he was some hillbilly guy at one time. He couldn't say who he was, that kind of thing. I know that when he went to some boxing match or UWF match, he would get out there, and they would introduce him as, the man known as The Undertaker. They could never say it's The Undertaker.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Last question for the night from the chat. Rusty, have you ever dealt with Andy Bellinger? He's an artist who wrestles in Canada currently.
The name sounds familiar, but I don't think I've ever. I don't think I've talked to him. The name sounds familiar, though. It really does.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for coming out, but unfortunately, we're about to wrap up. So my question that I leave everybody with, because you've had so far, and you're still young, you've had a very extensive career between childhood acting, wrestling, storyboarding for movies, putting out comic books, voice acting. I mean, you name it. You've done it.
All in the same day.
Yeah, really. If you could go back to when you were starting out as a kid, what advice would you give yourself?
Duck.
Don't let the ref raise your arm.
Yeah, that's about it. Run. I don't know if I would. It's like getting a mystery book and reading the last page before you start reading the book. I wouldn't want to give it away. I got to say, I've had a lot of great instances, and I've had a lot of bad instances at the same time. I don't know if I would probably go back, meet my younger self, and hand him a $20 bill, and then I would disappear. I don't know if I would give any advice or anything, because even the destination is part of the journey. And I often think to myself, in times of deep meditation, I often think to myself, what if I could go back to like my 20s but still know what I know now? I wouldn't want to go through it all again. It was very hard for me to get where I am. I don't want to say I was a prodigy. I don't want to say that I was discovered by somebody. I actually paid some strong dues. Like, I remember sleeping in cars. I remember sleeping in the locker room on towels.
I remember you telling me.
Yeah, I remember, I was even homeless at one time. Not just during wrestling, but I mean, during other periods. I remember working for a company and giving them thousands of dollars worth of work and getting ripped off. I worked on one of the most famous comic books in history that brought in tons of money, and I never got paid. And I tried to fight it legally and couldn't do it. I had a problem with Landon on the set of Little House on the Prairie. I remember getting hurt really bad in wrestling. Even the bad instances turned out to be good after a while. They're great stories, and it shapes you into what you are. So I don't know what I would tell my younger self. Maybe say buy 5 issues of the same comic so that you can, in the future you catch in. That's a famous time travel story. Go back and buy,
Go back and get Kirby to give me a couple of sketches.
Yeah, or go back and buy the first appearance of Batman. Buy every newsstand copy you can find. So
Gallo said, "Rusty, you're awesome. One of the best guests
here."
I
appreciate that. I really do.
Joe Ryan said, "It's been great hearing you behind the scenes life as a creator, storyboarder, concept artist, wrestler. It was inspiring to listen to why I did sketch cards tonight."
Well, I appreciate that.
Sorry, Del, but we're going to be wrapping up. And Steve said, "Great show, fellas. Thanks, Rusty, for coming on. It was extremely entertaining and wonderfully fascinating. Hope to see you out in the con circuit soon."
My only problem with conventions now is I don't know if I'm gonna make very many more appearances. I've been doing conventions for many years. I've probably done hundreds of appearances in conventions, but I'm having a problem with my back. And it gets harder and harder to sleep in the hotels, walk around,
right.
So I'm kind of giving up a lot. Anybody here that wants to, talk anytime or chat anytime, just look me up on Facebook. I'm always around, and I like talking to people. Hi, Chris. Chris is another fantastic artist.
Yep, he was on the show before too.
Beautiful artist. I actually, Chris might not know this, but I actually just inked a picture that Chris drew for a publisher the other day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he did a picture of a character called Sushi Cat.
Oh, yes.
And I inked that.
Very nice.
Yeah, Chris's artwork is beautiful.
Oh, I own some work from him, actually. Absolutely, he's a great artist.
Yeah, he is very extremely talented.
I agree.
So, but anyway, it's been an incredible pleasure talking to you.
You too, Rusty. Sorry I had to postpone yesterday. I appreciate your understanding.
Hey, listen, business is business, family's family. Whatever happened, I hope everything's okay.
Yeah, everything's okay.
Good.
But before you go, I just want to remind everybody, Mac in Trouble, keep an eye out. 2021 animated story, and you have macintrouble.com.
Yep.
Again, follow Rusty on Facebook if you're not already. You can go, you can reach out to him. Like you said, he's very, very receptive, and you can get issues of Mac in Trouble from him and all the other books that he's worked on. I'm sure he could direct you to copies.
Within the next couple of weeks, I'll have a sales page up. I have hundreds of cards. I just released a card set on The Wizard of Oz. I released a card set on pulp magazines. Joe's work was actually in that as well. Joe Ryan there in both of those sets, and I'm going to be releasing.
And didn't Henry Martinez, I think, said he worked with you?
Yeah, Henry did. Henry did too. I didn't see him until later, but yeah, Henry's work is also great. He has
Where'd you go?
He has a very crisp, great artist. Is he still around?
Yeah, you froze us. I think Henry left. He had mentioned it earlier, and I forgot to get back to that. But Henry's a good guy. He's an excellent artist, and people should check out his page too.
Yeah, please.
But Rusty, thank you so much for coming out. We had a lot of fun. I mean, it's very rare that I have a guest that has so many different areas of entertainment and pop culture to discuss. So it was really fun.
That's because I'm so big.
Well, what do I call you, master? I said you're a jack of all trades.
Yeah, jackass of all trades. That's good.
Well, the good news is the journey still continues, and we look forward to seeing all the things you have ahead. And you're welcome to come on back on the show again anytime.
I would love to, because I'm actually doing a voice on a couple of cartoons right now, and I would have loved to have talked about them, but next time.
What cartoons?
I'm working on. I sent you the picture, the Carrot Man, Mr. Carrot Man. I just did the voice of the banana in that. If you go look up Bumbitos, there you go. That's Crazy the banana, the Mr. Carrot Man. The promo cartoon is up right now. That's a series coming from Bumbitos. Michael Das is the producer on that and the creator, and the banana's name is Crazy, and the bank lady calls him Mr. Crazy, and that launches off a giant battle. But it's a very funny series coming soon. That promo is up on YouTube now with my voice, as well as Bumbitos has its own page on Facebook.
Cool. How do you? It's BOOMBIDOS for people who want to know how to spell it and go find it.
Yes, and then I did a video game. I did the Mad King and the Eternal Wars video game, and I'm just about to do voice work for a movie from Absurd Productions Pictures. Was it Mark Byrne is the producer behind that? They're doing a new film. Hold on, now that I have a chance to say it, now I forgot it. Hold on. No, I'm only kidding. Mark Byrne runs Absurd Productions Pictures, and he does. He's got this movie. I originally did artwork for the Bigfoot movie, and that poster became super famous. And I wound up doing artwork for Matt Burns for and Moni Pera for their KOA, Killed on Arrival. And this new film is, let me see, I'm just making sure that I can say what it is. And all right, well, anyway, it's called Brazen Impact, and it's an action adventure film, very gritty. And I'm doing the voice of a bail bondsman in that one, which is kind of cool. Rusty's bail bonds, and so I have a lot of irons in the fire. I also did some voices for a wrestling cartoon. It's animals that wrestle. So it's kind of like an anthropomorphic cartoon, also on Bombitos. I play Ringo the Flamingo, which is a ex-wrestling flamingo that's an announcer. That's the great thing about doing voices. You can go from the straight to the absurd in like seconds. I did a couple of Marvel and a couple of DC different voices as well. So I was really happy about that. But I really enjoy a lot of the underground and a lot of the funnier stuff. I actually played Batman and the Joker in one of the Geek Speak episodes from Bombitos. It's very funny. You have to look these up. They're on YouTube, they're on Roku, and on Amazon as well.
Cool.
So, but anyway, I don't want to take up your time. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for coming out. We had a blast. It was great getting into fan interaction, and everybody was into it. And very interesting life you've led so far. So let's see where it goes from here, right?
Yeah, fingers crossed so far. I don't want to drop dead right after this episode.
Just stay away from referees, and you might be all right.
That's true.
Well, Rusty, thank you so much, man.
But really, my pleasure. I'll talk to you anytime you need me.
Awesome. Thank you. Everybody follow Rusty and follow Bombitos and see everything that he's been doing.
Goodbye, everybody.
Have a good night.
See you later.
So that was Rusty Gilligan. He's led a very interesting life so far. Very fascinated by that. And it's amazing to see all the things he's done. I mean, he's dipped his toe basically in every pond you can think of in the pop culture world. Anyway, couple of things before I go. Tomorrow night, I have Joseph A. Michael with his Heroes for Causes on. He's an indie creator with his team tomorrow. They will be on at 10 p.m., so come on out and hang out and watch some indie creators and give them exposure, share it live, help them out. Please give them an audience. So there's that. Friday, Ricardo Silva was supposed to be on, but unfortunately he cannot make it, so that's my third cancellation for this month. But that is the way things go, right? As Mark Torres said, the show must go on. So instead, I decided I'm going to have 5 indie creators. Well, it's indie creators, it's podcasters, inkers. It's a few different people doing a few different things that are going to be on Friday. It's going to start at 9:30. It's a marathon, 9:30 to midnight. 9:30 to 10 is going to be Peter Palmiotti. Let me tell you who's going to be on, actually, while I'm here. If you guys got a few minutes. I know we've been on a while. But we have Peter Palmiotti from 9:30 to 10. From 10 to 10:20, Brett Sherman, who's an indie artist. 10:20 to 10:40, Mark May, who's currently got his Hellbringers card game going on, and he's got the Hellbringers book he's been working on. 10:40 to 11 p.m., Chuck, I think it's Pinot. I hope I pronounced that right. He's our indie writer. 11 to 11:20, Chris Markle and David Allen, who are podcasters. They have a cool show that'll be on. 11:20 to 11:40, Richard Jones III. He's also an indie creator. And 11:40 to 12 a.m., my friend William Wolford, who is an inker, who has inked some pieces for me and is a great guy. Rusty, yes. Rusty, he said, wonderful talking to all of you. Thank you, Philip, for a great night. God bless. God bless you too, Rusty. Thank you for being a great guest and coming on. We really enjoyed having you, and I look forward to having you back. Thank you. So we got a lot going on this week. Is just starting. Tomorrow and Friday we have shows. Please share them out. Let everybody know. Subscribe to the YouTube. Support us, please. I work hard. Anyway, having said that, we got all that going on. We got the show coming up December 6th. I have some news I'm going to be sharing very soon about my ventures in the comic business. Some of you already know. Some of you are about to know. So I look forward to announcing that. But anyway, I appreciate everybody that comes out. Oh, one last thing. This is very important. John Ottinger. is a wonderful human being. He has his own creator series, and the dwarves, which is an English term for dwarves. They're little sentient robots, and it's a wonderful fantasy for children. He just gave me this amazing mail call. I honestly, I don't know what to say. He gave this amazing mail call from my family, for my children, T-shirts and little maquets and books and pins and prints, and I cannot believe how much he did and how much he gave us, and the generosity was just through the roof. And I cannot thank John Ottinger enough. So I want everybody to go follow John Ottinger's page. Go check out Dweors and get your copies from him. The merchandise is such high quality, and the illustrations are wonderful, and it's child friendly. So please go check out John Ottinger and everything he's doing with his project. Again, what a wonderful human being. From my family to you, John, thank you so much, and God bless you. No, Dante, I'm sorry, and no OnlyFans soliciting here. Anyway, so that's enough for today. You've heard me speak enough. Again, thank you to everybody that comes out. Thank you to all the people that support the show, share it out, etc. Thank you to Heather, who admins my Creatorcon page. She does a lot to help me. Thank you. Thank you to Andy Lee, who does a tremendous amount of things for me too. So I've been going through some rough patches lately, and I have to tell you, I focus on the good people in my life, and there's been some really kind people that I don't even know very well that have been extremely kind. So thank you to you. Thank you to all of you. God bless you. And John, you shouldn't be thanking me. I'm thanking you. So anyway, I'm going to leave. I just want to tell everybody, pursue your dreams. Don't quit. Keep working. Nothing can stop you other than you. The only competition in this world you have is yourself. Be the better version of you every day. Keep working hard at what you want and love, and you will achieve it at some point. There is no timetable. Don't worry about what the Joneses are doing. Worry about what you are doing. Stay focused. Work hard. Be willing to bleed, and you can do what you want to do with life. You can do like Rusty Gilligan and all the other guests I have on here. You can do that as well. You just got to really want it. Having said that, be legendary and have fun storming the castle.